So here's what's going to be interesting. We're going to give a review for the Joker while that's behind us the whole time.
It's the wrong Joker also.
It is, but apparently it's now a staple of our videos, so we work with what we got. So, anyways, what's going on, y'all? We are the Cinefanatics. My name's Robert Adams.
I'm Chris Adams.
And I never say that first. That was kind of weird.
Yeah.
Anyways, we are here today with a review for Joker. We just saw this movie, and we've got our thoughts about this. Now, we're going to go ahead and set this video up for you up front, let you know that we're going to start off this video with a couple of non-spoilers, but then we're going to do some spoilers in the back. So feel free to watch this for right now. We'll give you a heads up when we switch over to talking about spoilers. So if you haven't seen it yet, you can click off the video, come back later after you've seen it, because you're going to want to hear everything we have to unpack about this movie in our spoiler section.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot.
A lot.
So overall, what would you say you thought of this movie, just going into like the story of it?
Man, okay, so behind the scenes, we've already slept on this. We had to. It's like everybody else. Everybody else who's seen this movie reviewed it, pretty much saw it, went to bed that night, got up the next day to do the review. That's what we did. You kind of have to. I'm still not completely sure 100% how I feel about everything, and that's kind of the risk of doing this on the fly. Overall, I thought the movie was good. I thought it was really good. But there are still just aspects that are just so rough to actually use the word good when describing. Just how the Joker is portrayed and everything. It's in the story and all that. It's just hard to say like, "Oh, this is good. This is good." It's rough.
Not good.
It's not good.
Yeah.
But it's a good film.
So I would say, in my opinion, just to kind of get the feel for like what you're hitting for, I would say this movie easily compares to what we've heard before: Taxi Driver, King of Comedy.
Yeah.
I would even throw in, what was it, Maniac, and it felt like there was a little bit of American Psycho in there too. I think it did a very good job with that, but it left you with the feelings that you walk away those movies with. Mm-hmm. That's what this one leaves you walking away. You like the movie, you enjoy the movie, but you feel like you maybe need to take a shower. Just a little, maybe. It is a focused piece on the depression, this downward spiral of this character, in which you knew this Joker movie wasn't going to be a happy movie, even though he's smiling and laughing all over the place.
Yeah, a little bit of his just kind of like the mental warfare he's going through with his condition and this, that, and the other. So I mean, there's a little bit there that's I mean, it's supposed to be dark. It's supposed to be bleak. You know, you're spending most of your time in the slums of the Gotham area, outskirts of the main Gotham City. So you know, you're spending a lot of your time in an area of town where people are poor, depressed, they're going through struggles, and I mean, you see that firsthand with him and his mom.
Yeah, it's not like blue skies and puppy dogs.
No.
All over the place. And you know that going in. Because of that, though, I would say the portrayal of Joker was really good. I think he did a fantastic job with getting into this character and just watching him become the Joker over the course of this movie.
Yeah, he completely disappears in this role. You don't see Joaquin Phoenix anymore. And part of that is due to his physical transformation. Obviously, you see the trailers, he's lost a ton of weight to portray this version of the Joker. But also just like in his mannerisms and how he behaves and just how he deals with what he's dealing with on a daily basis, with what he's fighting with in his head, essentially. Joaquin Phoenix is completely lost to the Joker, and it's one of those situations where it's like, you know, I wonder what the Academy is going to do, because you have a situation where Heath Ledger was nominated for his portrayal of the Joker in The Dark Knight. Well, here's another portrayal of the Joker that absolutely 100% should be nominated, no doubt about it. You've probably heard it from multiple other sources. Like, Joaquin Phoenix delivers an Oscar-worthy performance here. And should get a bunch of awards for it. But is the Academy still going to look at, especially with all the controversy surrounding the movie too, and kind of like what it shows and what's going on in the film, is this a movie that the Academy is going to, prop up and be like, hey, here's this? I don't know.
So that's one of the things I like to touch upon is like we like the Christopher Nolan movies for how realistic they were getting. And Heath Ledger's Joker is pretty realistic given the fact that he's still within the confines of a comic book movie. This movie, I think, kind of drops the comic book movie confines a little and really does show probably more realism, and especially because this movie takes place in the early 80s. So you're already distanced from it, so it takes you out of the fact that you're looking at something that should be drawn on a page type of situation.
Yeah.
So I like the joke going into this is that, like, I think this is probably an even more realistic portrayal of the Joker than The Dark Knight, which, again, Christopher Nolan's trying to strive for realism. So who do you get to do the movies even realer? The guy who directed the Hangover movies. You got Todd Phillips did this movie. He did Old School, the Hangover movies, Due Date. He's done some pretty good like comedic movies, but this is really, other than like say a lot of Due Date, this was really his first foray into a serious movie, and I think he did a really good job with this.
Yeah, I mean, just like the level of like how serious this movie is has not been touched by him before for sure.
Yeah, so the other thing that I think really helps like the movie's direction, not just Todd Phillips directing, is the score that was used in this movie.
Yeah.
It is a beautiful instrumental score that plays throughout it. There's one scene in particular where Joker, he it's almost like he can hear it and he kind of dances. He dances a lot in this movie, but he's dancing to the score, and it's a very beautifully shot scene. But the thing is it's definitely out of place. But it's in place, and it makes sense.
It's in place for what's happening with him as a character in that moment. Just what he experienced just very recently prior to that scene. Again, no spoilers at this point yet. But going into that moment kind of explains where he's going for the rest of the movie.
Yeah. So that was very well done. Anxious to see if this movie might get a nomination for best score, because I think it definitely should.
Yeah. As far as what's left for like spoiler free discussion, real quick, other standouts in the movie included really Robert De Niro as Murray Franklin, the talk show host. Really good. And then
which was a good draw from his character Rupert Pupkin from King of Comedy.
Yeah.
Like you could almost draw like if what happens to him in King of Comedy, if he was to continue as a potentially maybe a talk show host, this is where he would end up, and it would come kind of full circle.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. But then also you have Brett Cullen, which I don't know if they actually said in the trailers who he was portraying. I guess they did in the news segment. They had his name on there.
Yeah,
they had his name on there. So Thomas Wayne, they showed it in the trailer. Fantastic job. Really a different portrayal than what we saw sort of in Batman Begins, but we'll get into that a little bit here as well. It's kind of interesting, the dichotomy of how you mesh these two into the same character, basically.
Yeah. So that's going to do it for our spoiler-free section. If you would like to watch the spoilers, please stick around. If you don't want to see the spoilers because you haven't seen the movie yet, then this is where we're going to part ways for right now. Please check us out. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Cinefanatics MLP. Make sure you subscribe because we're about to hit 1,000 subscribers as of the recording of this video. So please subscribe and join us.
Real quick, what do we score this as? It's so hard. I would probably, I mean, it's up there. It's going to be like maybe, I'm going to have to give it at least a 4. Just because.
Yeah.
And that, I honestly believe that score is going to change.
Yeah, this is one of those where repeated viewings, you're going to see new angles, new thoughts, new things that come in.
Yeah.
And that the thing is a movie like this that does that to you is really good. I agree. Let's put a 4 in there. I'll figure out what kind of like little things I might make them out of. And
yeah, we're basically doing this. We're basically doing this out of 5. So just a 4 out of 5, essentially right now. And again, yeah, that score might change over time, especially if I get the gall to actually decide to watch this movie again. Anyway, yeah, thanks for joining us for the spoiler free. If you are sticking around, you're gonna hear spoilers now. Here we go. So, I don't know where we even want to jump in on this aspect, because, I mean, you're looking at Joker. So they're explaining his maniacal laughing by giving him an actual condition. His condition is that he can't stop laughing in stressful situations. So that's an interesting take on it.
But they're also playing up the fact that he's like a weak person who hasn't gotten their fair shake. He just can't grow to be anyone of any substance, importance, anything.
Which puts him in these situations where he's going in, like, he's killing some people here and there. And in those scenes when he's doing that, that's a stressful situation. So he starts laughing. So what you know as the Joker from, say, the comics or the animated series or anything is he's laughing after killing somebody. He's just fully leaning into the fact that that's who he's supposed to be. He's supposed to be this guy that finds just killing people who he thinks deserve it funny.
Yeah.
That is dark stuff.
Yeah. And it just plays into how the whole movie is his mental state. Sometimes what I like about this is that sometimes you think he's like just completely out there. The movie begins with him having a daydream of him being on Murray Franklin's talk show.
Yeah.
And at some point, even during that, you're like, is he actually on this talk show and we're just doing a flashback to it? No, it's in his head the entire time. So with that at the beginning of the movie, I kind of like it because it kind of leaves you not being able to trust a lot of things that happen throughout this whole movie.
You also get this sweet dichotomy, though, of him like hanging out with Murray in that scene in his head where Murray is embracing him, telling him, "I wish I had a son like you." Completely different than what actually happens when he does finally get on the talk show towards the end of the film.
Yeah.
I love that kind of dichotomy.
Yeah.
But as you were saying,
so you don't know what's real, you don't know what's fake, and at some points he seems very mentally stable, like he knows exactly what he's doing.
Yeah.
And then at some points he's just a crazy maniac person who, like, when he goes to try to do stand-up, like, I guess he's partially delusional. He doesn't realize that his jokes aren't good, that he's not good at stand-up.
maybe.
And that he's sitting here trying to perform this, but in his mind, when he rewatches it when they played on Murray Franklin's show, after his first joke, he's like, yes, that was a good joke. And he's laughing along with them like, I'm really glad I did that. But then he starts to realize he's basically being mocked.
Yeah.
And the big standout was Sophie.
Yeah, Zazie Beetz' character. So there's a little bit of a romantic interest that forms there, which is a really interesting take because you're sitting there going, okay, but this is a movie about Joker kind of devolving into the crazed maniac criminal that he is portrayed as in comics and other mediums. This type of person doesn't usually have, I mean, he's got Harley Quinn later, but even that relationship is... he doesn't usually have...
She's emancipated.
Coming soon. He doesn't usually have a love interest that's like a real like relationship, and so you see this forming with Sophie, and you're like, where's this going? This is interesting. This is interesting that he's got a loving relationship, and she's like, she seems in support of the things that he's doing, you know, without knowing that's him doing it. Then it turns out she wasn't. He was following her, and she doesn't actually exist as his relationship.
So they Bruce Willis Sixth Sense us the entire time.
She wasn't there with him the entire time that they've been showing her with him.
Yeah.
She doesn't really even know him. She just knows that he lives down the hall.
Yeah, that was well done.
That was kind of like a mind-blowing moment, especially when he like appears in her apartment, and then he walks out after she's like scared, and they kind of leave it ambiguous as to what happened to her once he walks out of the apartment.
Yes.
They didn't really say did she survive that encounter or not.
Did he kill her?
Yeah.
And we don't know. And like the movie goes on for like what, another 30 minutes or so afterwards, and you're like, all right, well,
30, 40 minutes, something like that.
Yeah, that's over.
Yeah. It's a really interesting choice. But yeah, just like I was saying, like his devolving into the actual Joker character though is really the meat of this movie, and again, Joaquin Phoenix portrayed that excellently because we're sitting here watching the trailers. I mean, you said it, I kind of agreed. He didn't look like the Joker in what we saw with the white makeup, blue eyes.
That was not the traditional Joker makeup.
He looked like a clown. He was wearing a almost Joker suit, and his hair was green.
Yeah.
So he was almost there, but he didn't look like what we know as the traditional Joker.
But you know what? Neither did Heath Ledger back here.
That's true too, especially not when he's in Starry Night form.
Yeah.
But by the end of the movie, not only does he have the character nailed perfectly, you start seeing, okay, yeah, this is definitely the Joker.
His makeup is kind of changed. He didn't go full on like what we're used to, but Like I think he gets like beaten up out of the car wreck or whatever at the end, and he smears the blood on his mouth that kind of reforms the red Joker smile.
Yeah, yeah,
He's
yeah.
starting to look like the Joker. And I fully believe that he is going to continue that transition to look exactly like the Joker had this movie continued.
And there was a moment like midway through when his old buddies from his works showed up before he bashed the dude's head into the wall, which was brutal. Where he had the green hair and he just had his face only painted white.
Yeah.
So you saw in that brief scene a glimpse of like the traditional Joker, white face,
Green
hair.
Blood splatter.
And then blood splattered on his face. But
I like what they've done with him throughout this movie. Just, again, going back to the fact that he's like slowly devolving into the Joker. They did a fantastic job with it culminating at the talk show, which for those of you who know anything about the Joker in the comics, him at a late night talk show never goes right.
don't
ever.
invite him to a talk show.
Yeah, so what was it? Joaquin Phoenix popped up on Jimmy Kimmel and we're like, good luck, Jimmy.
Oh, buddy. Especially knowing, having seen the movie, and now I see a Joaquin Phoenix interview, I'm like, that's not going to end well.
Don't ask him for a joke.
Yeah.
So there's, and of course that comes from The Dark Knight Returns, which is a very, very, very well beloved Frank Miller Batman story.
Yeah.
And then there was also, I have to say, there were touches about from the Killing Joke in this. And the other thing I like to bring back as far as Killing Joke goes is where he's talking about that if his life is going to have an origin, he wants it to be like multiple choice type thing. So who knows what origin is actually his? That's Killing Joke has done one. This movie could potentially be one. And there's a whole bunch of others that we've heard throughout the years. But I think this one is actually a really good origin story for this particular Joker. And I would actually be kind of like anxious to see if they were going to do a sequel.
They're not.
But they're not going to. I just want to see where this Joker continues on becoming the full-on clown prince of crime.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like this Joker you want to see go toe-to-toe with Batman, but at the same time, it kind of, I feel like it would ruin the portrayal of this Joker in a realistic setting if Batman showed up all of a sudden.
Yeah.
That being said, I think the standout moment for me was that talk show. It was the climax of the movie while he's on the talk show. You see Arthur Fleck throughout the rest of the movie is kind of a meek, quiet guy, not kind of staying out of the way. Even in moments where he's like killing people, he's still quiet while he's doing it. It happens, and he's on to the next scene. You don't see him talk too much. When he talks with a very soft voice.
Yeah.
However, when it came time for him to be on the talk show, and this is where I saw the Joker portrayal just really come to life, is that he looked like a man with a plan once he sat down. Once he started doing his little dancing as he was coming out, and then he sat down and started having the conversation with Murray, it took off from there. Like, he knew what he was doing on that talk show.
Yeah.
And at that point, it was to kill Murray.
Yeah, because there was a nice little twist from we were led up to believe that he was going to commit suicide on the show.
Yeah.
But then he has the realization about his mom. The two detectives are chasing him through the streets that inadvertently kill a person and cause a riot. Mm-hmm. And now he's starting to put together and see what his actions, his new purpose, his being in life is causing this chaos. And I think that's where there's the transition to him like, I'm just going to kill Murray.
Yeah, this is where I feel empowered now. I feel empowered by this chaos, which that is a Joker thing to a T.
Yeah. And then, of course, the other thing you have to touch upon is the fact that this movie takes place in Gotham City. So you do still have Bruce Wayne involved, and especially his father, because this is a much, much earlier movie while Bruce is still a kid.
Yeah.
Which, that was funny when they had him stuff his fingers in Bruce's mouth and make a smile.
That was so weird.
That was a weird dichotomy there. And Alfred's kind of a prick.
Yeah,
he was kind of mean.
He wasn't a nice guy, but
then there was Thomas Wayne, which we were talking about earlier. He's really a good focal point for the Joker in this movie, and he's not necessarily painted in a good light in this.
No, but that's because this movie really comes out off the perspective of Joker, and again, like the people who live in the slums around him. They are going to see somebody like Thomas Wayne as kind of like the bad guy, which understandably, like this movie makes a bunch of different points, some of it being anti-bullying, some of it being mental health, kind of mental health awareness stuff. But also part of it also seems to be like the 1% versus the rest kind of an argument, in which case they see somebody like Thomas Wayne, why aren't you, down here, hands and feet, like helping us? Which in the movie, Thomas Wayne is describing himself as, I'm running for mayor. I'm going to be somebody who can help you once I'm in this position. You just got to let me. And it's a weird dichotomy, because if you look at Thomas Wayne from the perspective of, everybody else, you see him as normal. This is how somebody in his position should and probably would react to all this. But if you go from the perspective the movie has you in, from Joker's perspective, yeah, Thomas Wayne looks like a really bad dude.
And you were saying in comparison to, say, like Batman Begins, where Thomas Wayne is absolutely nice because we've only seen him from the viewpoint of the young Bruce Wayne being a nurturing father. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, a nice little angle to that. Yeah.
How do you match those two up and for them to be the same character?
This would be a great Thomas Wayne. And I think he's a good Thomas Wayne anyways, given the angle that we're seeing him from. The other thing I really like about this is the nice little nod at the end to the famous alley. Once again, we get the Batman origin where his family is shot and killed in a back alley, but I think this one actually fit almost better than any other portrayal of this. A lot of the other Batman movies have just done hey, let's do a flashback to show Bruce's anguish, and we get it. His parents were killed in the alley after leaving a theater early.
We understand now.
We got that. This one actually put it in kind of almost pretty naturally into the storyline of what's going on at this point in the movie.
Yeah, it's mid-riot. There's a bunch of people going crazy in the streets. And, of course, these people are the people who have it out against Thomas Wayne. So if he's trying to sneak off out of a theater, of course, one of those guys is going to be like, ooh, there's Thomas Wayne.
Yeah, and the thing I like is they still kind of left it that in the comics it's supposed to be Joe Chill who kills the Waynes. Mm-hmm. They still left it that this was a guy with a clown mask on, so it still could have been Joe Chill. But I like the idea of the clown mask, and I don't know if this was done on purpose or if I'm just reading too much into it, but wearing the clown mask still kind of makes a nice little nod to 1989's Batman, where it was very much hinted at that it was a younger Joker that killed the Waynes in the alley.
But I do like that it ended with him saying, this is all just a joke, or it's talking about the joke that's coming, and you do a quick flash of just Bruce standing there with his parents lying on the ground.
Yeah.
You're like, it's coming.
Yeah. So that's good. And then, of course, the very, very last scene of this movie is Joker running around Arkham from the orderlies while his feet are tracking blood, because I'm guessing he just killed the doctor.
Probably.
Yeah, and that was just great silliness, and I think that's straight into how the Joker is in the comics. So they really did end it on a really good nod and note on that. So,
overall, I think the movie was great, but it's really hard to say that because of the content of the film.
Yeah. So that's going to wrap it up for this review. Like I said, I think we're both pretty much in agreement. 4 out of 5 Batman symbols. So good movie. Highly recommend. Go see it. And just be prepared for some mental state shock on that. Like we said earlier, make sure you follow us at Cinefanatics MLP on Twitter and Instagram. And make sure you subscribe to us. We're going to be hitting that 1,000 subscribers. Please be a part of that number. You can subscribe to us by hitting the subscribe button up here above our heads. Over here off to the side are a couple other videos that we have made. And as always...
doing it again.
Creepy. Later.
See ya. Living in an apartment, I'm probably freaking out our neighbors when I do that.
Probably.
Yeah, well.